Hi guys, how's it going? Today I'd like to show you my setup for an eGPU with the Core Razer X and an NVIDIA GTX 970 connected to a MacBook Pro 2015 with the AMD M370x. So currently I have Mac OS 10.13.6 installed, and the way it's configured right now is I have to plug in the eGPU before I select Mac OS. And I'm going to go ahead and select Mac OS at this screen, and it'll load. And I can hear my eGPU fans on. When I see that on the screen, that means that the eGPU driver is actually being loaded correctly. And the screen opens up, and this is all on the internal display. So I'm going to go ahead and log into my account here. And if I go ahead and open the activity monitor, you should be able to see all three GPUs loaded and running. And I can use the set GPU to force apps over to my 970. I don't really like the performance of games on Macs at all, so I'm just going to keep this ready in case I need to use something that could be accelerated. And I'm also looking forward to the updated web drivers for 10.14.2 because I was able to get to this functioning state, but I wasn't able to set the GPU to any of my apps. It just wasn't loading any apps into the eGPU. All right, so now I'm going to restart, and this is where the problem happens really on my setup. This is where if I boot into Windows with the eGPU plugged in, it'll just display a black screen, and that's because for some reason Mac OS has been overriding, or in my opinion, it's been overriding the GPU power prefs NVRAM variable, or they're locking it out or something. So you can't really set it from within Mac. You can set it from within Windows with the integrated.bat script, but it takes time, and it just adds a few minutes every time you want to start your Windows eGPU setup. So this drive here actually contains a very lightweight Linux that will just boot up, set your NVRAM variables, and it takes about 8 to 10 seconds, but it could actually be faster than that. And it'll reboot your computer back to refined and select your Windows installation and give you 60 seconds to plug in your eGPU. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in here. I'm going to hit enter, and it'll run an EFI script to do your Apple set OS EFI, which allows the iGPU to be loaded, and it also sets the iGPU as the main display screen. Again, Windows will freeze at this screen for a little bit with the eGPU connected because it's loading the NVIDIA Optimus drivers, and it'll just load right in. And if I go ahead and unlock the computer here, you'll see that down here I have the Intel Iris graphics, I have the AMD Radeon, which Windows does detect as a high-performance graphics card, and I have the NVIDIA eGPU setup. Now, another cool thing about this setup is, in theory, I was able to hot unplug the eGPU and rely on the 370X, and then hot plug the GPU in and rely on the 970. But that's not entirely stable yet. I've noticed sometimes I'll get a blue screen, sometimes it will just work, so I don't recommend doing just that. But you'll see down here that my GTX 970 is running, and I'm going to go ahead and load a game like Rocket League, which I previously was never able to run smoothly on Windows on the M370, and I actually even have MSI Afterburner installed so that I can overclock the 970, but I found that that doesn't really affect it much since we're kind of limited by the Thunderbolt connection at this point. But I'm going to go ahead and overclock it to something reasonable that I've tried in the past with this card, and I'm going to hit apply. And I'm letting the fan speed be auto here, and GPU 2 is our 970, and you'll see the temperature here is 36, and the utilization is 99% for GPU 1, For GPU 2, it's 0. I think this 99% for the AMD isn't really true, because without any games running, the laptop runs quite smoothly. But I'm going to go ahead and log into my Steam here. And I finally got this build to be very stable, so I'm not too worried about this GPU 1 usage. And you can always disable the AMD drive if you'd like. And so I think Rocket League's about to start up now. Games take a little bit longer, in my opinion, to start with the Optimus setup, but with this, what I noticed is on the 15-inch at least, the optimal resolution was 1920 by 1080, and I got pretty solid performance from the game. You can see even the NVIDIA GeForce Experience loads in. Rocket League's not choppy at all. So this actually changed. This is supposed to be 1080, I think, with all the different settings I've tried. And you can ignore this notification. Oh, no, 1200 is the right one. Okay, so we'll stay at 1200. Which was surprising to me. It wasn't the default 1440, which still works, but you can get better quality and graphics that way. And I'm gonna go to training mode real quick, just to heat up the GPU a little bit. And what you'll notice is the eGPU fans will actually start running. Let's go ahead here and look at our GPU 2 temperature. They're rising, and our usage dropped to 0, and now it's actually using GPU 2 for Rocket League. It's not using 100% of it, and I think that's expected, but it's very, very sufficient for moderate to a little heavier gaming. So that's the setup. If you're interested in a image for that Linux distro, I do plan to write a full tutorial potentially in the next few weeks, because it's still on holiday, so can't spend too much time figuring this out. But then again, you can, Windows updates fine. It's going to install an update and shut down. And that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to email me or message me on this forum if you have any questions.